Check one. Come on, clap it up, everybody, if you're ready to have a conversation about our future. Come on, y'all, make some noise. All this is in the building at one time. All right, well, my moderators, we out here together, Wayno, Britt. We just want to set the stage real quick. Part of what we did several months ago, Wayno, myself, you, Marvin, were on a conversation talking about this moment, talking about the importance of what were we going to do for the people that we know and love who seem to be left out of the conversation. And this came out of that. Recall that conversation just for a second.
Yeah, I mean, is my mic is on?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just having a conversation about, honestly about where the state was, where it came to voting, our rights, and I was expressing that I also didn't know a lot of things. And we was talking about the urgency, and that urgency came to the point of us saying, like, well, what would happen? And we was like, we got to get it done or else. And that drove the narrative for the project and for what we sitting here today.
And Britt, we know these conversations happen in so many different places outside of the mainstream, couches, kitchens, barbershops, beauty shops. This idea that or else is a real reality, and now we're bringing it to the mainstream. Why is that so important for us today?
We're bringing it to the mainstream because if we don't have these conversations out loud, not just with each other, not just in private, but out loud, then the people who actually need to hear our truths are not going to be pressed to move. They're not going to be pressed to change. We're the ones who have to create the pressure. So we need to get out, have these conversations out loud, and make sure that it's not just vote or else, but that we're actually making decisions about our future.
One of the things we said on the conversation is that we need to bring all the parts of our community together who may not see eye to eye and not allow disagreement to be the thing that breaks us out of relationship. But we also have to learn to have the conversation even when we don't agree. So we're calling this the Great Debate because we do believe that there's something valuable about having a conversation among ourselves, even when we don't always agree, to see how can we get to some agreement. That's the theme for tonight, right?
Absolutely, and I think a lot of times when these conversations occur, certain classes, certain people just feel invisible. Like, honestly, you know what I mean? And today is for us to just have an open dialogue.
Well, I do believe that this dialogue is the beginning, it's not the end. And Britt, our job is to help moderate all these wonderful, loquacious brothers and sisters up here and get us out of here before midnight. Somebody say amen.
Amen.
So, you know what it's about. What did we say, Britt?
I absolutely know what it's about. And I think before we get into the conversation, the controversy, the disagreement, the agreement, one thing we can all agree upon is that Black folks have a record, legacy, and reputation of saving ourselves. And that's what tonight is all about. Tonight is all about making sure that whether it's at the ballot box, whether it's on the streets, whether it's at the community center, in the church, the synagogue, the mosque, or just the corner, that we are always about the business of being about each other. That we are always about the business of making sure that tomorrow is better than today for somebody Black. So that's why we're all here no matter what we discuss. Is that all right?
Yep. And it is one guideline: speak your truth, but speak it with love. And let's listen and let's hear what Veza, we in your city. Look, you brought all of us out to your city, bruh. And we was in the neighborhood all day. How does it feel for us to be in your city launching this conversation?
No, it's love. I appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? It's inspirational, real motivational. You know, it means a lot to me in real life, though. I appreciate everybody that came out and decided to have this conversation in Detroit. You know, so yeah, love.
Why is Detroit so pivotal? When you think of the country, when you think of the culture, you from Detroit, this is your spot. Why is this such an important conversation? And what do you think it meant for us to be in your neighborhood at your spot? Because we was really walking in spaces where you frequent. Why was that so important for you, and why you think it's important for the country?
Because first of all, it's important for my neighborhood, you know, for them youngins to be able to see people that they see on TV and people that they watch growing up and everything, you know, just to know that these people is in arm's reach, you know what I'm saying? It inspired them, because that type of stuff inspired me, you know, running into guys that I looked up to or that I might admire at one point, being able to see them up person, you know what I mean? Just to be able to get a word from them meant everything to me, and it motivated me, and I know it do the same for them. And as far as Detroit, you know, Detroit always been like a mecca. You know, if you think about the big three, that started here. You know, Motown Records, this stuff started here. We was probably one of the first cities with a middle class Black families, you know, in multiple different neighborhoods. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's important.
Well, I'm gonna come to you, Killer Mike, right behind you, because we had these conversations about this very notion of black people, black families, black self-determination. We don't want to gloss over that too quick, right? And this conversation has to be about that, but often the political conversation does not include that. What would you say why this part of the conversation is so important?
First of all, Vizzo, thank you for having us in your city. You give some of the most intelligent interviews I've ever seen, and I've been waiting to tell you that. So thank you. I think self-determination is important because, my family from the deep south, they're from Tuskegee, Alabama, Eatonton, Georgia, Greenville. So the only thing that's ever truly worked is self-determination. My grandfather was adamant about, you can go to work with whoever, but you go home and you live amongst your own. And I didn't understand that when I was young, but in order to keep the black dollar circulating in the black community, you need to live next door to black people. And to make sure that your schools are doing what they should, then it needs to be different incomes. I grew up in a place called Acaria Heights. Everything from working class black folks lived there like my grandparents to the richest black developer in the Southeast, the Russell family. So because I went to school with people who were diverse in terms of their economic background, but they were all black, I was confident, I was competent, and I understood the power of doing. I understood the power of having a garden in your backyard. I understood the power of fishing, hunting for yourself. And I think that ultimately black people are always better when we can do for self. That does not mean government does not owe us. That does not mean we shouldn't seek reparations. That does not mean we should not expect something out of government we pay taxes to. But I was always taught it's always better when we take care of our own community. So what I would like to see more of going forward is more black businesses open, more black men and women businesses open. I'd like to see us get in businesses that are not only, restaurants, clubs, things of that nature. I'd like to see us get in businesses like my brother, I heard Push talking, he was saying medical transport was something he got into. Medical transport, the government's gonna have that. The next 100 years, they're gonna have to give you transport. And if our people gotta go to dialysis, goddamn it ought to be our company taking them. So for me, black self-determination is what Atlanta has been for the last 124 years. It was that when Booker T. Washington and W.B. Du Bois held the Atlanta Conference there in 1904, 1905. It was that in the 40s when John Wesley Dobbs, Maynard Jackson's, the first black mayor's grandfather, set aside a black business force. It was there 50 years ago when Maynard became mayor and made that 29% of black business had to be done with the city. And it's that now, and I hope it continues to be.
You know what?
Clap it up for that, man.
That's right.
I mean, we just seen two of the hot, man.
Brilliance.
Yeah,
We're seeing
good
absolute
combo.
brilliance, and that's what we're going to continue to engage with in this conversation. But Pusha T, I want to come to you, right? Because we just heard a little bit about something that you've started. You've had your hands in a whole lot of pots, right, behind the scenes that people don't even know about. Why did you decide? I didn't even mean anything by it, I swear. But you know what? I want to hear more about this enterprise, and I want to hear exactly why you have wanted to diversify your work in this way when it comes to black self-determination.
Basically, it was a passion project for me. Medical transportation was a passion project. My mother was on dialysis. My uncles, everybody, even my grandmother actually. And I actually had a friend who had brought me in on a trucking business early on. He ended up getting incarcerated, and when he came out, he was like, "Look, bruh, I'm telling you, it's something new going on out here. It's this medical transportation. I done looked into it, and let's go back and forth about it." So, man, he was a real good person to me, and personally, I just felt like, man, like we had done so much wrong together that I was like, we got to be able to do some good together.
Come on with that.
And man, we've been in business 9 years now. And
Clap it up for that, y'all.
That's right.
it's we've moved family members, friends, families, everybody around. I say it all the time. I own stores and things like this, but medical transportation is by far my most fulfilling business, by far.
And I'm sure that you know this, but I want to make sure that people know this, that in doing the work of medical transportation specifically for our community, you stand in an incredible legacy. How many of you all know that ambulatory services and paramedic services were modeled after what black people built all over the world? How many of y'all already knew that? See, a lot of us don't know that. So in Pittsburgh, back in the day, ambulances used to be basically handled by fire departments. But when it came to us calling those fire departments when we needed help, They were slow to come if they came at all. So a bunch of black people got together and they created a place called Freedom House Ambulance Services. And black folks literally came together in Pittsburgh and did exactly what you're doing now. They said, we don't have to ask or wait on anybody, we're gonna do it ourselves. And Freedom House was so good that it literally elevated the level of care that you got in an ambulance to the point that anytime anybody you know gets picked up by medical transportation, they're following the Freedom House playbook. So I want to thank you for standing in that legacy and recognizing that when we do for ourselves, when we see the gap, we can fill it. There's nothing that's stopping us.
I have a question. For you to do, get into something like that, you had the privilege of your homeboy putting you onto that information.
For sure.
Right? But there's so many like brothers and sisters who might come into money from different means, whether that's like from them working and stacking up or them, doing whatever they're doing to get it. How does one get that information to know that the stuff that like that even exists? Because most people, when it comes to finance, the first thing they think it is, oh, I made 50 bands, let me get a franchise. Or I made such and such, let me get a dispensary, or let me get that. So if we want to have more information, where do they get that information from?
There are a lot of state agencies that, because there's a lot of licenses and things that you have to be cleared in dealing with people. It's state and it's insurance a lot. So if you really tap in with your city and state, you can just punch it in and you can see everything. Honestly.
I think part of what we want to ensure in this conversation is that we not only provide knowledge, but we also provide, everybody went to a smorgasbord or a buffet, and you get a lot of everything, a lot of what you like. Yeah, that's old school. Smorgasbord is old school, right? But a buffet, you get a little bit of everything you like. Phil, I want to come to you to help us diversify the conversation a little bit. I do remember this conversation about, can black capitalism save us? And I'd love for you to mix it up a little bit and talk about what is the economic vision that has to continue to proliferate within our community so we don't lose our self-determination by trying to be like them, when in actuality they need to be like us.
Thank you, Rev. I really love you, brother.
Your shoulders is broad enough for it,
yes,
though.
Sir, yes, sir. So this is what I'll say. Each and every one of us comes from a long tradition of black people who have engaged in cooperative economics. How many of y'all have heard of cooperative economics? Right? And so what I'll do, without going too deep into the answer to your question, into socialism, what I'll do is say, what we have is an opportunity with the resources that we have here to build an entirely different economic model. The economic model that we live under, capitalism, comes from the slave model. Black people, the people in this room, your forefathers, your foremothers, are responsible for the entirety of the wealth of the Western world. Do you understand that? It is through your labor, through your work, that the entirety of the wealth of the Western world, from France to England to Portugal to the Swiss banks, was built on the labor of black people. That is what capitalism did. And so we have a responsibility that when we get the bag, we have a responsibility not to replicate the very system that exploited and destroyed and raped our mothers and our families. Do you all kind of agree with that? And so what I would say is, in this moment, when money is scarce in some places, that when you get the bag, we have a responsibility to build cooperative economic businesses and models. We see it in the black banking industry. We see it in susus. We see it in ways that we do GoFundMes, all manner of ways. But if we continue to replicate the business model that got us here, we will never get free. And so what I would recommend is you start something with your people. Make each one of you a co-owner. Make each one of you an owner of that enterprise. Each one of you all has equal power and equal responsibility. You all decide what happens with the profits from that industry. You all employ as many people as you can, but ensure that whatever you do not replicate the exploitative model that we grew up under. So it's my belief, fundamentally, that black capitalism will not save us, but black capital can be a part of saving us. And it's about building businesses that are different than the ones that exploited us before.
I wanted to ask this question to Black Sam. So, you know, of course, the marathon. You know, you and your brother built that company up. And I had the privilege of going to the store when you guys were building it up, when it was just like bags everywhere. I wanted to know about the discipline that it takes. You know what I mean? To even put yourself in a position to build a company like logistically like you did, because a lot of people don't know the work that you did behind the scenes.
Yep, I think consistency, that's the key, and just mind state, and really I think, and seeing people that have done it. You know, me and bro, we used to work at a fish market when we was younger, so we was in there slaving, flipping burgers, probably like $6 an hour, and I think we just was like, man, if we ever get an opportunity to have our own, we gonna go double hard, and you know, through doing illegal things and getting arrests or whatever, having some money, trying to figure it out. When we did get the opportunity to do something legit, I think, you know, definitely bro, myself and the whole team, other business partners, you know, we got with some friends, had the same vision, and we was just like all in, like we gonna sleep in here, we gonna go, like you're saying, we just was putting everything into it. And I think, you know, we were lucky, and you know, we had multiple things that aligned, but not to be long-winded, but I think it's just consistency, and it's just really having the opportunity, but then understanding the importance of that opportunity is key. And for us, that's what that was. We just like, man, this our one shot to legitimize, or we got something here, so, you know, we're gonna go for it. And it's trials and tribulations, like you said. You gotta learn from it. You're gonna lose money. This don't work. This does work. Just understanding that, you know, it looked good when the results come, but you gotta know what it takes to get there, and you gotta be willing to go through it. And, you know, just don't be scared. You know, fuck some money off, lose it, put it back in. Just, it's a lifestyle, you know, and not to be long-winded, but be able to finance the dream also. You know, for whatever level, you got to be able to get some money, throw some money at it, and do that for the rest of your life. And, you know, teaching that, I think, is key. Because some people may get some money and then lose it and then get discouraged. You got to just be able to just stay at it.
Thank you so much for that. That's right. That's absolutely
Very
deserves
true.
a round of applause, not just for the answer, but for the work. You know, I want to switch gears a little bit because, as Killer Mike already reminded us, as much as we talk about what we can do for ourselves, especially when it comes to cooperative economics, we also know that we are in a political time and we are political people. I always like to remind myself and others that politics is interested in us even if we are not interested in it. And as Killer Mike reminded us, government does owe us plenty, and they will impact how we do what we do with each other, whether we have a say in it or not. So Tamika, I want to come to you because the truth of the matter is a lot of us feel like politics doesn't have anything to do with us because politicians don't want to have anything to do with us, right? If we're even lucky enough to get that door knock every 4 years when they act like they finally remember black people exist, plenty of our neighborhoods don't have anybody canvassing. Plenty of our neighborhoods don't have anybody coming around every 4 years, let alone consistently to be hearing from us what we need, what we desire, what we envision for ourselves, and then actually building structures and solutions to support us in doing that. So I'm curious, Tamika, because you stay in these streets, tell us the truth about why that is and what we should be doing about it.
Well, first of all, thank you. And I just want to thank Marvin Bing. I don't know where he is, but thank you so much, Marvin, for bringing us together. This is an incredible group of people, and I really feel honored to be a part of this conversation with so many dope brothers and sisters. You know, you are so right what you said, Brittany, about the fact that all of this politics will impact us every day. I hear a lot of people saying, I'm not into that politics stuff. I'm like, okay, well, you're gonna follow the street lights, whether they work or not correctly on your block, whether the garbage gets picked up or it doesn't, you know, whether or not the park is safe, whether gun violence is a major issue in your community. There will be someone to make a decision about that. And so when we find ourselves, due to extreme frustration I do not blame our people for feeling like we just are tired of hearing people tell us go to the polls and vote and vote and vote, and they don't see much happening for their vote. And I understand it. And in fact, I'm frustrated. I feel the same way. It is oftentimes difficult for me to even have conversations with our people because I understand the frustration and I feel it myself. But I will say, when we hear all of this great talk about businesses and building businesses and self-determination, well, there are people who govern that as well. So we hear a lot in this election about tax codes and tax cuts and who's going to cut taxes for which group of people, who's going to benefit from the tax cuts, who will be harmed as a result of tax cuts. That has a lot to do with the businesses that we're building. There are people in our communities right now who have businesses or had a business that they could no longer sustain because of what politicians do, that they may or may not have been involved with. And it's not always easy to understand the underlining words that are being said. And that is why it's important for us to be in community like this, because I did not know the information about the ambulance services that you just pulled out of your head from the sky somewhere that, you're taking out. Like, how the hell did she know that, right? But I didn't know that, but it's good information to have. And we are all more intelligent, more informed, and more empowered when we sit in space, even with people who we don't know, who we don't necessarily agree with, people who we may not vote the same, we may not love the same, we may not share much of the same anything. But when we understand one another and understand one another's perspectives, it makes us a more empowered community and gives us opportunity to go out and do more and be more and have more intersectional ways for other people in our communities to see us. I truly do believe that when we are in disarray, as the people who are on the TV that you said, folks, they see you on TV, they love you, they want to support you, and then we're in disarray, we're arguing with one another, we don't have information, we're not sharing information, it makes our people check out even more. And so in this particular moment, I do believe that self-determination is the only thing that will save us. But in order for us to make our self-determination actualize, we're going to really need to be educated about what these people are saying, what they're saying in debates, what their campaign material is saying, and that's not just presidential candidates, but people on the local level in your particular states and cities have a lot to do with how the distribution of funds and resources are done. They have a lot to do with the laws that are being passed that will ultimately help to govern how you make money, how your children are educated, how your communities are kept safe. And so we have to be engaged. We don't have a choice. And I think that is why vote or else is so important, because the or else is so loaded with so much that can happen to us. One thing we know is that anytime people believe you are vulnerable, either because you are uneducated or disengaged, they will use it and take advantage of you. And so again, I'm happy to be here because I think we will all walk away from here, no matter what our position is, and I'm talking about all of us, not just the folks that are up here, being able to go out into our communities and help to educate the people who didn't make it in this room.
Absolutely. Clap it up for that. And Mike, I'm going to come to you.
Hey, hold up. I got something to say. Not
Bezel,
to cut you off, right? So I think what create a part of that vulnerability also is, for instance, right, the whole reparations thing, I'm up in the air about that, right? Because, for instance, I think that it's not a good thing for us because it create this sense of we waiting for something from somebody. Like, whether we feel them folks owe us or not, like that ain't never a good thing. It creates a sense of entitlement. We don't need to go about anything like that. I understand what we was promised and what we built and all that. For me, I see it as let's pick up and keep it moving. If we don't want one thing from them, then we don't need nothing from them. We don't need to create that. And I think when we ask for reparations and we try to fight for reparations, it look vulnerable. It make us look weak, respectfully.
Well, I would just say quickly, and I'm sure there are others that could answer the reparations question even better, but I think that we have to put ourselves in a position that we can do both and. That it is not one thing or the other. There are people who will be fighting for reparations, which is what our communities deserve. There are other people who are going to be focused on building small businesses, other people who are in electoral politics, other people who will be doing community safety. And I think all cylinders have to be operating at the same time so that we benefit from everything.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Rather than us discouraging people from doing what they're interested and passionate.
And the only reason, so the people that's fighting for it is important that, let them fight for us. But we got to be mindful of our crowd and who we talking to. We still have to educate our people on a slew of things. So when you telling somebody who's already not that educated and that versed on politics, and you telling them, listen, we owe something, just wait for it. I'm from the trenches. I dealt with a lot of people that felt like I owed them. I seen people let themselves go from waiting on stuff. We don't need to put that in these youngest' minds to sit back and wait. We got something coming. Some people will take that in a literal sense. So we just got to be careful with how we fight. We got to be careful with our words. It's the way we go about it. But if we keep throwing that up there and out there, you never know. People would take that literal and they'd take it the wrong way. We don't want to wait on nothing. We don't need nothing from them folks. Let's build this shit on our own. Let's go get it on our own.
I wanted to add to that because I remember in 2020 it was so much like I felt like after the George Floyd thing happened, everybody was like, oh, we didn't know black people was going through these tough times, right? And it was all this money, the 150 million to this and the 200 million to that and all the money to this, right? And I think we at the point where we don't need people to tell us that they care about us. I think the reform that we need is economic reform. You know what I mean? That's one of the biggest things, right? I mean, everybody talks about financial literacy and all of that. And why don't our teachers teach us? Because our teachers is in debt. Why don't our mothers teach us? Because our mothers didn't have the opportunity to have certain types of jobs in the economy they grew up in. So my biggest thing that I think about is like economic reform when I hear what you're saying and I hear what you're saying. Like it needs to be a conversation around like really building if we going to do it. Not just like, because what happened to all that money that everybody was talking about in 2020, bro? Like that shit just disappeared.
Most of it did not get given out as it was promised, and the vast majority of it was actually in the form of grants and loans so that those banking institutions could make their money back off of it.
Everybody in Detroit was turned up off that money. I'm not gonna lie. Am I lying? We had a lot of money, and it did get spent, but nobody spent the money for. No, for sure. I'm not negating what you're saying. What you're saying is factual, and what you're saying makes the most sense. I'm just saying, like, we have some.
But this is why our consciousness has to be elevated, right? Because when you get money and you don't start the businesses or you don't engage in cooperative economics and you blow it, you know what I'm saying? Then it becomes a missed opportunity. And so part of what I want to go to Mike though, right?
I want to say something to what he said too.
Go ahead.
And I totally agree. Like, I don't think we should wait on anything. But it's pretty much like working a job, right? And they take taxes out your money every week.
Sure.
Right? Imagine if they never gave you none of their taxes. And everybody else was getting theirs. You still working, you working hard, and everybody is getting their tax return at the end of the year. They're getting 50, 20,000. They've been doing that for 100 years. You don't think you owed your money?
We're not doing imaginables, though. We're doing what's literally
No, I'm
happening.
saying that's literally what happened. We literally built America
on
our backs with sweat equity for free, and we deserved it. We earned that. We didn't. This is not free money. This is what we actually earned.
We contradicting ourselves. It's a contradiction to say we want economic. What you say we need, Wayne? Economic. We saying we want economic reform, right? And we want to build things on our own, but then we come to the table like, all right, yeah, but you owe us something from 100 years ago. We know that they owe us. We know we feel like we owe something. It's just a contradiction. Nobody is coming to the table that way. But we got to come to the table strong and with respect for ourselves.
Let me just say this, though. It is not true that reparations isn't happening because it's happening now.
No,
hold on, just a second. There are towns, cities, and states right now in the United States of America that are giving reparations to residents. And so part of what I think we ought to be able to do is hold both things in our head at the same time, not cancel each other out, right? So again, if it's indeed the case that reparations is happening now, just like Sis talked about the ambulance house, that didn't happen every place at the same time, but it happened in one place and it began to proliferate. Why? Because people caught an imagination, a vision, an idea. They saw it one place, said if it can happen there, it can happen there. What we need is enough unity, coordination, and alignment, and to say that even if that's not my project, I'm going to boost my brother who does believe reparations that's happening now in, say, where's it, Chicago, outside of Chicago? Evanston. Where if you living in Evanston, you getting a check, right? And not only a check, but you're also getting other kinds of benefits. If it can happen in Evanston, it should be able to happen in Atlanta. It should be able to happen in other places, but it doesn't mean that we stop calling for economic empowerment, investment, strategic. It just means we should do both things at the same time, and that has to be the part of our conversation.
I think you saying exactly what I'm saying.
Good. We agree.
If it happened, it happened. Just let it happen is what I'm saying.
But it's happening.
No, so let it happen.
Yeah.
When we come together, we need to make it count. You see what I'm saying? If we got enough time to come together to push a reparation agenda to ask these folks for something, the same people you just said we don't need to replicate their business practices. These same folks you said that about. Like,
but
we don't need to care.
But we didn't say we need to replicate their business model, right? We talking about transformation, and we talking about the way we relate to one another.
No, absolutely.
So all I just want to say, and I want to kind of throw the mic around a little bit, one of the reasons why we came here, one of the reasons why we're trying to do this in other places across the country, is because one of the neighborhoods we was in today, your neighborhood, we know that many candidates will not show up
For sure.
to this conversation, to this body of people. And so we have to have the conversation among ourselves, but we also know that the conversation among ourselves has to have a consciousness. One of the things that's been great about black people, culture is our superpower. One of many, right? But they can't replicate our culture. Shaheem, I'm coming to you, because one of the things that we did with this project is we wanted to make sure that we took culture and turned it into a catalyst for elevating minds and building power. Talk a little bit about the project, and then Dizza and other folks I want to come in, because y'all own this project. Why did you lean in? Why did you say I'm going to take my talent and lean in on this project?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. All of us, black community, hip-hop community, we do have to use our Avenger-like powers just to better ourselves. So we have an EP that's coming out. It's called Or Else, where we have several of the greats, Beanie, Freeway, J Electronica, Black Thought, the first ever collaboration between Bun B and Havoc from Mobb Deep. We haven't closed out the project yet, so hopefully we get some verses from some of the other brothers that's on the panel today. And the music, it's definitely not too late. The music is directly speaking to some of the issues that's going on in the neighborhood that we want to see addressed, not just by the election, the presidential election, the state and local elections, but some of the issues that's going on in the neighborhood that we ourselves have to have that reflection, and we got to check ourselves, and we got to do some of that inner growth that we need. So that's one of the things that we're all coming together, joining forces. My brother Smoke Dizza's on the project as well. He could tell you about, from the artist perspective, what it's like to mix it up with some of his peers.
What it is, because we out here hot, bro.
That was a good alley-oop, Shaheem. Thanks. Well, first and foremost, I want to thank Marvin Bing, because he's the reason why I'm even on the project and this is even happening, right? And then, really just to use influence and, just really just raising awareness to our little brothers and sisters out there that, we do have a voice. And just to make them get out there and go vote, encourage them to really stand up for the community. And we got to be the change we want to see. You know what I mean? So that's what it is.
And Beans, I'm going to come to you next, because what some people may not know, right, is that you, Marv, and a few folks was already here in Detroit starting to build. with Hill Harper's campaign some months ago, and it created the energy around why we had to bring both culture, influence, and all these folks together. What moved you to jump into this? I know you've been doing it longer than even Hill Harper's campaign, but you're the epitome of that, bringing it all together. Why?
Well, I didn't just jump in. I rock with Marvin Bain just so I could really educate myself on these things. And I hear a lot about, you know, like I agree totally with you, Vaz. I want to talk about that reparation thing. Who we want reparation from? Like I'm on issues. I don't care about certain things. Like to me, politics is a politricks. Honestly. So my thing is to educate myself so I can really understand like what's going on even with my people. Because I listen to Black Sam and you know, we watched his movement that his brother Nipsey wasn't waiting for reparation from nobody. They went out and did it on their own. They understood that. Bushman, he wasn't waiting for reparation. I don't think with the ambulance thing he was doing. Vaz wasn't waiting for reparation, and he totally pouring in to his neighborhoods. Who he want reparation from? And who deserve? If we talk about reparation, the first thing I look at is my neighborhood, who I'm directly impacted with every day. Every day. And if we as a collective, like, come together how we all, like I see the United States in this room. I'm from the East Coast. He from the East Coast. We got down south of here. We got Midwest in here. We got the West Coast. This right here, more conversations and not just talk. We moving out. We moving out. You got the United States right here. This reparation. I think people need to be honest with themselves and stop playing games with themselves. Stop this saying stuff because it sound cute. Like I ain't with none of that. Never was, never will be. I'm for my people and I'm for issues. You wait for reparation for somebody, all them people want them 40 acres, they ain't never getting that. Let's stop lying to each other, for one, and just be real. I don't know. I don't got the politically correct shit to say, so
I got
excuse me.
I got one last thing.
Excuse me.
Yep.
Hey, look, I got one last thing on that real quick, right? This is my very last point about this, right? This is just how I see it. I understand exactly what you're saying, brother. I understand what you're saying as well. I'm just seeing it from a different lens, right? So subconsciously, what we're not realizing is if we ask and fight for reparations, we ask them to give us something, we still in a position to have to wait on them. We still needing them to help build up. No matter what we do with these reparations, they give us anything, we still getting something from these people. We don't need it. We don't need them to build on nothing.
I'm just gonna just to say, when I hear the word wait, that's kind of disturbing because people are not waiting for anything.
How long has it been?
But what I'm saying is that people are not, they didn't stop working and building. Look at all of us who are sitting here right now. We're doing amazing things. Communities are thriving. People are working hard.
Sure.
At the same time, we're not just fighting for reparations. You know, it's not something that just came out of the sky.
For sure.
Of course, it has been said that we are owed reparations, but we're also asking for what has been given to other people who have suffered less than us.
Absolutely.
Right? So other communities have gone through less than what black people have gone through. And what I think is problematic about, and I want to use more positive words, but what I think we need to be conscious of is that black people oftentimes are the only group of people that fight against our own interests. There is nothing wrong with the fact that there is an organized body of people that have a specific focus on receiving the benefits that are owed to us the same way it has been to other communities. while there are some of us who are saying, well, we're not waiting on that. We're going to continue building and doing what we need to do in our communities because we may or may not ever receive it. So again, I think that the whole point here is there's a lot of things that I don't engage in, right? There's a lot of movement stuff and, you know, different initiatives that people are working on every day. And I don't engage in them, but I never speak against it. I always say, well, my brother, that might not be my area, but I support you and I hope it happens. But I'm doing what I'm doing and I support you in doing what you're doing. You will never hear me in public speaking against somebody doing something that is to our benefit, not to our detriment.
Misunderstanding what we're saying. That's not what we're saying. Yeah, we saying let it happen, right? But we have to be careful with the words that we use. Everybody does not have the type of insight, the type of intellect that you may have, that I may have.
Yeah.
We just have to be careful with the way we word it so
come
they
in
don't
for a
literally
second.
wait on it. That's what we're saying. We're not saying don't allow it to happen, go against the agenda. We're saying be careful with the way we word this and the way we frame going about reparations, because you have someone like little shorties that will literally wait on it. So we have to be careful with how we word it and the way we go about fighting for it. We have to be particular with our messaging, love. That's all we're saying.
I think two things could be true.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, at this point they just ancillary. You feel me? Like, it's just gonna be ancillary income if it ever does happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and here's the thing. I really been wanting to come to you, Yellow, because part of what you do is make sure that you are thoughtful about your words and teaching about these issues, right, that Beans was just talking about. You've used music to do that. You use social media to do that. You've gone viral doing it several times. I know you have some thoughts on this conversation, but I also just want to hear from you because so many folks are saying, I just don't understand, right? People are having a conversation in a language that I don't understand. And to be clear, that's often intentional. There are plenty of folks who want to make sure that we don't understand these issues, who want to make sure that the language is too complicated for us. And so what is your approach in making sure that as we educate ourselves, we can do so in a way that we can not only receive the information, but pass it on?
Well, I feel like I can tie both of them together, you know what I'm saying? I think we put like way too much emphasis on economics when it comes to even promoting politics from the government standpoint to even the people asking for stuff, right? Because for years and years, you know, politicians say, hey, black community, we're going to do this for your community. We're going to get this much cut off the taxes. We're going to get y'all this much more on y'all checks. And then time passed and it don't happen. And then we get discouraged and we say the system don't work for us. You know what I'm saying? And that happens over and over. But there are issues that matter to us a little bit more because, let's be honest, black people, we don't really believe that nobody's going to do nothing for us. So if we try to push for reparations and they say they're going to give it to us, we're not encouraged, we're not empowered by that, because if that was the case, we would be showing up in numbers to vote, and we're not. And I'm not just talking about the presidential elections and all the elections. We're not encouraged. So then what is it? I look at myself, right? I'm 24 at the time, and my cousin come to me and she say, cuz, I want you to make a song about voting. Mind you, I had voted for Obama back in 2012, and I thought that was gonna change my life. I was excited, you know what I'm saying? At the time, I was broke. I'm talking about sleeping on the floor, struggling broke, you know what I'm saying? And I'm out there in a long line, thousands of people waiting to vote for Obama. A couple years passed, I'm still struggling, you know what I'm saying? I had to build so much on my own, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get it by myself, you know what I'm saying? Like, forget the system, forget politics altogether. She like, but can you just make a song about voting? Trust me, the people need it. And she like, well, she asked me a question. She said, well, why don't you feel voting is important? And I told her about the Obama thing. She said, what's some things you would want to see change? And that was the moment right there that I feel like that we need to be doing that more than anything else. She said, what are some things you want to see change? I said, well, cuz, look, it's potholes in the street. You know what I'm saying? I drive down, I could barely drive, you know what I'm saying, from Dayton, Ohio, and the streets was extremely bad. I'm like, bro, it's all these potholes in the street. She said, well, you know, it's an infrastructure bill that could be passed that could get the roads fixed, like, it's like probably within the next year or two. And I'm like, damn, for real? You know what I'm saying? Then she started going through all these different things. And I got homies that's locked up that's doing crazy time for small little weed charges. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, oh, she started breaking it all down to me. And every single problem that I had was a state official, you know what I'm saying, or a local level government problem. So my thing is we have to start not keep telling people, y'all need to vote. We need to not keep telling people your ancestors died for you to vote. We need to start asking the young people, hey, what are some things you want to see change? Because that's what did it for me, and I feel like that's what it'll do it for everybody else if they feel heard.
So take a jump on in here, because part of what we pivoting now to is the election, and we got an important election coming up. You have helped to catalyze a whole bunch of folk. You and the Win with Black Women Collective. I know y'all been meeting for several years before Kamala Harris was elevated or at least endorsed by Biden, and it triggered something. This election is so important, but we're not all on the same page about the validity, the value of the choices we have. Some folk feel like we ought to hold our vote all together. Some folk feel like we ought to keep pushing lesser two evils. What makes you navigate this moment the way you do? And let's start the conversation and bring a few more folks into that.
Well, first of all, thank you for this conversation. It's an honor really to be on the stage with all of you. And also big shout out to Marvin Bing, who I call Baby Bing, for having the vision around this. Yeah. So really for me, and I'm going to use my sister Brittany's favorite word, it's about our power. It is about our power, but more so about our collective power. And I think and I know that there is a multitude of resources, billions of dollars that are spent to thwart our power, because every single issue that we have discussed is on the ballot. So whether or not, and there was this conversation in Yellow Pain, you talked about the potholes or whatever it is, and we should have these conversations about what is it in our communities that we most care about, and what are the issues that are going to drive us to want to vote. Because we can't simply just go and say, oh, go vote, go vote, go vote, but understanding that if you were marching because you were deeply concerned by the fact that those that murdered Ahmaud Arbery were not arrested, understand that it was a district attorney who was elected in a county who went unopposed for nearly 20 years, where we as black folk had enough votes in that county that we could shift the election. And the ultimate reality is that our power is so important, because the people who don't want us to vote, they understand our power. And they understand our collective ability to shift and put into place people who can demand and who vote on these issues that we care about. And I heard someone say on the previous panel that elections is not just about voting on election day. And I think that is what a big part of the problem is that we are told, or often we feel like we go vote and then we go home. No, we can't go vote and go home. We have to hold the people who are in office, whether we voted for them or not, accountable. And they have to understand that we put them in place and we can take them out. And that is so pivotal and important. And to your point, Pastor Mike, when we talk about right now in this moment right now, we have a candidate, a black woman, who is poised to be the first black woman president of this country. And whether or not people agree with all of her policies, when we look at what the alternative is in this country, to me, that is vote or else. Because I am looking at a candidate who, well, some people will look at this candidate and understand they might not like everything about Vice President Kamala Harris, but she sure as heck is not Donald Trump. She is not someone who is blatantly racist, who is blatantly disrespectful to our community, someone who is hell-bent on tearing down every sense of forward momentum that we have had in our country. And that is what has been the motivation for me, and ultimately what we as black women and as black men together have done to catapult this nation. Because let's be real, there are people who did not want to see what is happening in this country. And if it was not for black women, 44,000 of us plus another 50,000, and then black men on the very next day, we shifted this nation. And what's important for us to understand is all of us on this stage and everybody out here, we set and define culture, we shape trends, we do everything in this country, and we can shape this country too. And those who don't want us to vote, who don't want us to recognize that power, they're trying to thwart it.
I have a question. So I really respect what you said about power, right? But for myself, I'm 41 years old. I've been a 17-year-old kid raised in a single-parent household by my mom's. As soon as I walk out the door, it's gangs, it's drugs, it's hysteria. Like, nothing where I'm from makes sense, right? And that 17-year-old kid is about to turn 18. And this could be for a young man or for a young woman. The issues that they dealing with on a daily basis, how do we even get them to realize what their power is? Because the shit that you speaking of, I'm feeling moved by it, right? But this is me with a developed mind. This is me at 41 making 100 mistakes and learning from them and getting myself to the stage. But it's a lot of young men and women that's never going to be on this level. Yeah. And I'm not saying that to discount nobody, but how do we instill in our youth? We talk at the youth so much. Yeah. Y'all stupid, y'all don't do this, y'all dangerous, y'all, we don't want y'all, we kick them down all the time. So I'm just saying, it's like, I done been there as a young man. That's why I'm feeling passionate while I'm saying this shit. Like, how do we get to them? Because it feels like it feels like it's almost impossible.
If you put money on JPay today, last week, if you go out your house and this nigga selling dope outside your house, if you hate going to school because the shit sucks, if your water dirty, if all you drink is juice all day, you ain't got shit, you're not gonna have shit, it's because some white boy in a room got with his boys and decided what your city is gonna look like. Nothing that you are experiencing, I grew up in Chicago, I grew up in West Inglewood. Nothing that I lived under was an accident. Nothing, you're not getting robbed, you're not having to rob people because you was born to be deviant. If you don't have the things that you are supposed to have as a human being in this country, it is because people woke up in the morning, went into their office and decided that you would not have it. It's not because God decided it. It's not by accident. It's because there are people who have everything because you don't have nothing. And until we decide to build some sort of independent political power, we can debate about what is the solution, who is the solution, but until people are scared to disappoint black people, we are gonna still live like this. The person that you vote for tomorrow or in November is not gonna change everything. That's a lie. That's a lie. Kamala not gonna change it. Trump definitely not gonna change it. Okay? That is a lie. But the nightmare that we are living under is a 100-year mission from people who are meeting in luxury places in Bloomfield or wherever the nice neighborhoods here and around Detroit. They are living a dream while we live in a nightmare. They are telling you, wait until you die to go to heaven and then you'll have streets paved with gold, while they living in abundance right now. So that's what you need to know. If we're not organized, if we're not voting on an agenda, on a platform, and moving, doing both, I agree with you. We got to do both. I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to let them off the hook. I'm not going to let nobody off the hook. I want everything that I'm deserving. But until we organize and do something on voting day and after voting day, all of this is for nothing. I just want you to know, and I won't say nothing else the whole rest of the time. Nothing else, nothing that is happening right now is an accident. It is because people decided it and they sleep good knowing you live like shit.
Real good. So what are some of these That's a round of applause. You always teaching. You know that. But I really want to make sure that we get to Wayno's question because these issues, right, are so often not actually being heard or they're being heard and the folks who hear about it don't care about it, who are in a position to make a decision about it. And you're absolutely right. So I want to come to Freeway because you do so much in the community. And when we're talking about what's actually on people's minds, as Yellow Pain reminded us, right? What are the issues that are not being talked about? What are the things that are being left off the table such that people are not being inspired? And how do we do that organizing that Phil talked about to make them actually understand that we shouldn't be underestimated because we're absolutely a threat to the power structure?
I feel like it starts with things like what we're doing now, coming together, you know, and lending our voice. Shout out to my brother Pusha T for the medical transportation company. That's beautiful, and I know how important it is because I was on dialysis for 4 years. I was on dialysis from September 15th, 2015, all the way to February 5th, 2019, when I received my gift of life, my new kidney. So I know the importance of, you know, medical transportation. And I feel like education is the key. Like, we got to get with these young folks and we got to educate them. Whatever knowledge that we got to pump it into them so they can know what they're dealing with. You know, the reason why I had kidney failure is because I was uneducated. I was putting things into my body that I shouldn't be putting into my body. I was living the lifestyle of a rap star, performing 2 in the morning, eating whatever I want to eat, you know, smoking, drinking, doing the things that I wasn't supposed to do, and it took a toll on my body. So like one of my main missions is spreading awareness. I started Freedom Thinkers Academy, which is music, health, education, and culture. On the health side, you know, I work with the National Kidney Foundation. I work with Gift of Life. I work with Donate Life. I travel the world spreading awareness about health, and we preach prevention so people don't get to the position that I was in where I had to get a kidney transplant. But back to the education. Education is very important. On the education side in Philadelphia, we have STEM workforce development programs. We got phlebotomy, medical billing and coding, audio visual engineering, things that will give these people, they get these certifications and they can immediately start earning an income for themselves. To date, we graduated 131 students, you know, and that's my way of pumping back into the community, educating these people. In my city, Philadelphia, it's a lot of violence, it's a lot of negativity. So I feel like instead of being on the corner risking your life trying to rob people, trying to sell drugs, we provide y'all with this opportunity to take the certification course for free. And then when you get the certification, we assist you in getting jobs in the area. You know, so that's what I'm doing. Each and every one of us got to try our best to do what we can do, the best that we can do to help our community.
That's fire, because I don't know nothing about phlebotomy. That's incredible. JP, do you have thoughts on this?
Thoughts specifically on political efficacy?
Well, just how we organize, how we teach, how we learn, how we organize to make sure that our agenda is the one that's met.
Man, I think with young people, what the way that information is being disseminated right now is very complex, a lot more complex than it was probably 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, especially with them receiving information through social media platforms, and not all of that information is vetted, and sometimes it's not looked through the lens of that these applications are created by engineers with the bottom line of creating profits, right? And so this is non-discriminate to young people, it's to old people, to everybody. Everybody is susceptible to falling into the trap of misinformation, right? Especially now with, you know, the advent of AI technology, where something can look very polished, can look like it was produced by a major news outlet, and information is completely felonious and crazy. And so we got to teach our, you know, all our people to look at things very critically and vet and check and verify all of the information that they receive. I think that's the first part, you know, because truthfully, that's where everybody's getting their information from. And, you know, we see it. I see it within my own family, where I have family members that have gone down the rabbit hole of conspiracies because they're not looking at this information through the lens, a critical lens, that this information could have been generated by a 14-year-old that used ChatGPT to create the, you know, the text and dialogue for this video, and then was able to use AI technology to create pretty compelling images. You score it with the right music, and it almost seems like the more sensationalized information is, the faster that it spreads. So I think that that's very important, you know, that's a fundamental thing. But to the point Wayno was making, I mean, I think, you know, speaking in respect to like black and brown communities, sometimes our fundamental needs every day, just of safety, of food, of stability in the home, those are the critical basic concern or needs that human beings need. The last thing that you're thinking about is, you know, the political process and the things that, you know, that can affect us. And truthfully, people have a lack of political efficacy because they've been dealt so many promises that are never kept.
Well, we're close to having to wind all this down. Obviously, we'll be here all night. I'm gonna do a quick moderator's privilege. Go to my son and Killer Mike if and invite all of us to close it down with a quick few words. We haven't talked enough about the targeted ways of engaging black men. I know we've been trying to figure this out and unlock this in this political season. Mike, say a quick word about that, Killer Mike. Then talk about what do we need to hear, what do we need to demand, and then let's just go around real quick, everybody, 30 seconds. Final words to everybody in the building. Obviously, y'all can be a long-winded black preacher. I'm Matt. Y'all be short. Mike, what would you say?
I just want to, first of all, say thank you to everybody on this panel, because I got a lot of information, got a lot of point of views, and this is what it's going to take for us to actually get where we need to go. We need to sit in rooms, we need to iron out our differences, and then come out with our one objective and one agenda. That's what we need to do, because everybody else does that. And I think that we have to be more strategic, especially as black men, in the way that we do the things that we need to do to get what we need to do. Now, back to that question. We've had this conversation a lot. And what I say all the time is that the Democratic Party is doing a poor job of marketing black men, of marketing to black men. We do not see ourselves visually inside this party. This is why someone who is a trickster like Donald Trump can prey on that, because he symbolizes some level of masculinity that we don't see, even though it's poor masculinity, but it is some level of masculinity that the Democratic Party seems to have shifted away from. Even though I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris, and I say that all the time, but I understand my brothers who don't see themselves, who have been taught that masculinity is toxic. And everyone says that, have this conversation about black men are not doing this. I think the messaging has to get that we support black men, that you stand next to strong black men that look like the ones that are in this room. We visualize and see ourselves within the party. We see ourselves being elevated. We see ourselves in places to where we say this party resembles us. And Donald Trump is preying on that. He's preying on that. He's getting up there and he's saying things that sound masculine. So we hear it in our ears and be like, damn, that's kind of true. That's kind of true. We don't want to live like this. We don't really agree with all of these certain agendas. So what we have to do is understand that, of course, we're not going to all agree. Everything is not going to be, a lot of policies we're not going to agree on. But if the Democrats want to appeal to black men, then they have to show symbolism of what we reflect. You have to understand what is important to us. You have to ask us what our needs. You have to have people that represent our needs and that we see within the party.
Killer Mike, beyond symbolism, beyond, performance, right? Because it is indeed the case that the longer term project is to rebuild us as healthy human beings and individuals across the board. But some of us are tired of the symbols. Like, I want some concrete. What's about to change? So say a quick word about that. Then we're going to have to give everybody a quick closing comment.
Well, first, let me give, since I'm in Michigan, I'd like to give respect and a God bless the dead for John Conyers. He was an amazing legislator for a number of years, and he was the person who brought to the floor, even though he never got it passed, HB 40. And House Bill 40 is a bill that Sheila Jackson Lee, also God bless the dead, who's gone now, picked up. And that bill was simply to study what we owed. So we don't even know what we owed in America. Like, shit, nigga, we ain't gonna do the study. So I would encourage all of those while we build our own businesses to make sure that we support whatever legislators support that study, because that man was from Michigan, and I think that's a genius idea. Now, as a black capitalist, because I'm known to be in business, I also would like to point you guys beyond John Conyers, who was a legislator, 3 branches of government, the judicial, the executive, the legislator. I'd like for us to talk about Robert Smith, who's a fucking billionaire. He's black, and he suggested that the corporations that exist now, that have grown out of slavery, whether you're talking about Bank of America that acquired banks, or whether you're talking to them, people say, well, I don't know who's a slave. You was a slave, you was property, they kept your ass on the census. I can tell you the port my great-grandfather's grandfather came in through. He suggested that we take companies and put a 2% tax on those companies. So you can support legislatively by whoever's running, saying, I'm running on HB 40, you can vote for them. And then you can pivot in to what Robert Smith says, that says, I'm not going to shop with your corporation if your corporation is not down to give 2% of what you make back, because this is what you've taken from us. And that's just to say, whether you're following Tariq Elite, Antonio, Yvette, or Cobra, who's been around since the 60s, there is a methodology in which we can still build and be supporting one another at the same time. So we can juggle. I promise we can. On the other side, we should be getting into businesses that have to do business with government, like our brother Pusher. And what I mean by that is, every time you see someone being transported, when you see a dump truck leaving a port, when you see buildings going up, that is infrastructure. We should make a demand that federal dollars that come to our state and public schools on the city level, part of those dollars go to trade programs in high school. Our girls are going to college and graduating. My teachers, all their husbands was tradesmen. My teachers made about 50 grand a year teaching. Their husbands made about 100 being locksmiths and plumbers and carpenters and shit. Those men read Shakespeare too, but they could build a house, and that's why they got paid. So I would say that our boys especially, but all our children, need to be a part of programs as early as high school. Little Yachty graduated high school. He rich as a motherfucker now. Before Little Yachty got rich as a motherfucker, the person who made the most money out of his graduating class was a customer of one of my barbershops. He took welding in high school. He came out of high school making $70,000 a year. So we have examples that we've used before that can make us successful again. And I totally agree with you. We ought to be growing our own food. We ought to be attending our own markets. So when you hear words like buy local, what I hear is buy black. I need you to open up a vegetable stand so I can buy that shit off the back of your truck, because I don't like driving 40 minutes to go to Whole Foods. You know what I mean? There's no disrespect to Whole Foods. I just stay in an all-black neighborhood. I think that black people can do a bunch of different things at once if we say, Black Sam's doing this in LA, we doing this in Chicago, we doing this in the D. We'll update each other on what we doing a few times a year. We'll support each other from a legislative level. Even if we don't always agree with what it needs to be going on in the way, we need to be showing up in solidarity. When we sit with any political party, I think that we should have a list of demands, and if you don't have a list of demands, go find one. Right now, if I was an intelligent black person, I would go snatch the Green Party's black agenda. And I would go sit down with whoever want to talk to me and say, how close can you get me to this? Because the Green Party is the only party with a black agenda. And that's not me saying go vote Green Party. That's saying go steal something good that they're using and take it in your negotiation table and say, I want this. I think that we are politically sophisticated enough to understand that Martin and Malcolm, toward the end of their lives, were virtually saying the same thing. You are owed something. I also think my granddaddy, who couldn't read past the third grade level, was the smartest man in the world, because he was like, Vizzo, them crackers ain't gonna give you shit. So what I've had to learn in my life is to, Michael, work your ass off to do good business, and at the same time, push for policy that gives you a legislative advantage in your community. I think that black people should read The Devil You Know by Charles Blow. I think that we should look for Black Revolution Down South, which is his documentary, and I think that we should be pivoting ourselves to where we dominate. We dominate in southern states. 54% of black people live in the southeast, and I think rappers, athletes, business people, engineers, doctors, lawyers should be buying businesses and homes in Atlanta, Macon, Birmingham, Charlotte, Jacksonville, Tampa, and you should dominate. And you have examples on how to do it. Well, how do we do it, Michael? You do exactly what the Mormons did in Utah. You do exactly what the Amish and the Mennonite do in Ohio. You go hyper-local. You focus hyper-local on elections. Whoever's going to be the president, God bless their soul. I care more about who's going to be my next prosecutor. I care more about who's going to be my next judge. I care more about who's going to be my next mayor. And I don't give a damn if they like it or not. I'm going to meet with my Republican governor because he has the ability to release funds directly into my Democratic city. So I just encourage black people to know that you already have everything it takes to be successful. But you have to plot, plan, strategize, organize, and mobilize. And I'm going to repeat that.
Yeah.
Because I don't know locally what you can do here. I know locally what we can do in Atlanta, and I know it requires plotting, planning, strategizing, organizing, and mobilizing. That's about all I got to say. I love y'all, and thank you.
All right, we got to stop it there. Everybody, put your hands together, vote or else. Super grateful for Marvin Bing, Mobilize Justice, Black Church PAC. We got to get out the room because the union people on our ass. God bless.
What up, though, y'all? You already know it's your girl, Jaja. We just had a phenomenal debate and panel. I hope you learned something. Listen, we love y'all. It's National Registration Day. Listen, we danced, we partied, we tick-tocked, we turned up. But listen, unfortunately, there won't be a concert after this debate. Unfortunately, it will not be a concert after this debate. You don't gotta go home, but you know the rest. It won't be a concert after this, but we thank you. Did y'all have a good time? Somewhat? Okay, beautiful. I had a great time, and it's National Registration Day. Make sure you get 10 people to register with you, because I'll be bringing some people to register with me. I love y'all. DJ Mix,